So AEW Revolution 2023 is tonight, and for the first time ever in the 4 years AEW has been alive, this will be the first AEW pay-per-view that I officially skip out on. I will not be buying tonight's pay-per-view, nor do I have any intentions to watch the show. So instead of doing predictions for tonight's show, I'm going to instead be going through the matches and why I'm not as interested in them and why this pay-per-view, in my opinion, is not worth buying, where in years past, I would buy every single AEW pay-per-view. There's been a couple occasions where I was not able to watch the pay-per-view live, but I still bought it and watched it later on. I may not even do that. If there's one match I'll probably end up watching later on, it's the main event, and probably another match if people tell me if it's great or not. That being said, let's get into it. Actually, before we start, let's do a quick little disclaimer. If you are a humongous AEW fan, do not want to hear any criticisms about the company, just overall don't want to hear anything negative about AEW, just click off the video right now. I still love AEW, and I still consider myself a big fan of the company. My interest in the product is very low, the lowest it's ever been. And because I'm still very passionate about All Elite Wrestling, I'm still going to be here and add some criticisms to what's going on right now and digest and really take in why I'm not enjoying it and offer what I think can change to make it appealing again. This video is not an AEW slander video. I am not here to talk shit about it, nor am I here to glorify WWE, talk about why that's better. So if you're looking for that too, just click off. That being said, let's get into it. And I guess before we even get into the match card, I should really talk about where my interest really started to wane in this company, to the point where I'm not even buying the pay-per-view tonight. For me, I know that the interest started to wane slowly but gradually after AEW Full Gear 2022. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't a perfect show, but it was generally a really good to great show. And just by watching a product, we have seen that AEW Full Gear is basically the year end for AEW. All the big matches are blowing off, all the big storylines culminate, and then we get into new ones going into the new year. December has normally been a buffer month for AEW, but we all know once we get to November, this is where we start seeing a new chapter. And that's where we get to this point, where I feel like AEW has really not progressed much at all since Full Gear last year. With the exception of the main event, most of the storylines have kind of eked over from last year, or were stopped and then started up again, but were pre-existing storylines that now are not as hot as they were in the past. And you'll see what I mean in a second, because now we're going to break down the card. Now I'm going to be fair and start off with the match I was actually most excited about, and that is Jungle Boy Jack Perry versus Christian Cage in the Final Burial. Now, if we're being real here, this feud has been going on for nearly 2 years. The very first seed for this match was planted at AEW Double or Nothing 2021, when Jungle Boy eliminated Christian Cage to win the match. That basically started their father-son relationship. Jungle Boy ended up being managed by Christian Cage alongside Luchasaurus. Christian Cage essentially kicked Marco Stunt out of the group and took his place. That partnership went on for basically the entire duration of 2021. Going into 2022 up until Christian turned on Jungle Boy. Then he had Luchasaurus turn on Jungle Boy. Then Luchasaurus turned on Christian Cage. Jungle Boy and Christian had a match. Christian squashed him. Christian ended up being out for several months because he was injured. Luchasaurus then turned on Jungle Boy again, which led to this cage match at AEW Full Gear 2022, which was the culmination of Jungle Boy Jack Perry and Luchasaurus' relationship and their ongoing feud. And even though Jungle Boy won, you knew that his feud with Christian Cage was not over yet because Christian was still injured. Christian returns, and now we're here. I'm excited for the aspect of it being a casket match and for Christian Cage and Jungle Boy to finally have a match after so long. And listen, there's nothing we could have done about the fact that Christian Cage got injured. That really delayed a lot of things. It just feels like this match is coming very late. The feud is not as hot. Despite all that, this is probably the only other match that I'm going to watch on the show afterwards outside of the main event. Now let's talk about Chris Jericho versus Ricky Starks, where everyone is banned from ringside. Now this is something admittedly that I'm starting to not like about Tony Khan's booking. Because this feud started in like mid-December, and it built up to them having a match on the very first episode of AEW Dynamite in 2023. They had their match, which was really good, and Ricky Starks won. The babyface won the first match. That right there is enough. You don't even have to go any further. But after Chris Jericho faced Action Andretti and Ricky Starks got involved, they just kind of kept on feuding. And it really didn't make too much sense because it wasn't like Chris Jericho was obsessed with getting back at Ricky Starks and getting that victory over him. It really felt like Ricky Starks just wanted to face Chris Jericho again to have one over on him, to get back at him for attacking Action Andretti. And it's like, I don't feel like it's that deep. Like, you beat him already. Move on. Then the Jericho Appreciation Society got involved. Then we see Chris Jericho do what he's been doing in all of his major feuds so far. If you lose to them, you have to join my faction. Ha ha ha. Ricky Starks beats them all. Chris Jericho's the final boss. Again, even though he beat him already. This just feels like a very unnecessary match to have. Like, it feels like this match was booked so that way Chris Jericho and Ricky Starks are on the card. And the stipulation going from JAS is banned to everyone is banned leads me to believe some bullshit's about to happen. And I've been seeing the rumors about Big Show returning, so... The state of the AEW tag team division is very questionable right now. Now, I myself was not the biggest fan of the Guns winning the AEW tag team championships. I don't hate them, but I don't find them to be a very interesting tag team either. But, you know, given they're the heels and they just beat the Acclaim and their dad's involved, it's like, okay, I get it. Like, if this is how you get to a rematch where the Acclaim win the tag titles back at Revolution, okay. But then they announced it to be a fatal 4-way tag team match at Revolution. And I was very puzzled because it's like, this is a feud between the Guns and the Acclaimed. Why are you including 2 other tag teams? This honestly should have just been a straight up tag team match, add a stipulation, whatever, but to add 2 other tag teams, like, Now that's before we even knew who was a part of this match. First, Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal win, they get in this match. And I'm like, we've been there, done that with Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. A bit tedious to re-include them in this match, especially because their feud with the Acclaimed is over. Then we got into last week where we got Orange Cassidy and Danhausen included. I love this tag team pairing, but they have no business being involved in this match. This is also a testament to the status of the AEW All-Atlantic Championship, the most unimportant championship in all of professional wrestling. It's never defended against any main eventers, or has a proper feud to feel important, and now it's on a pay-per-view but not in a championship match. Honestly, that title should just be scrapped. Just like this match should be scrapped, honestly. This match right here should have been for the tag team championships and should have been happening on a pay-per-view, but I digress. The AEW Women's World Championship triple threat match is okay. Jamie Hayter is great. I think she's been a really good champion. Saraya's return has really been a letdown. Like, she barely wrestles, and when she does, her matches are never really that compelling. She still feels a little out of place, like she's still trying to get the ring rust off. And honestly, I don't want to sound like this, but it doesn't feel like she's honestly ready to be in the match for the World Championship. I kind of feel like they threw Ruby Soho in here so that way they don't face off against each other one-on-one. Because I feel like these two would really exploit her flaws. So throwing Ruby in here to make a triple threat kind of helps smoke and mirror things a little bit. But the real feud is between Saraya and Jamie Hayter. A feud that's not very captivating, by the way. This match should have been Jamie Hayter versus Britt Baker. For whatever reason, Tony Khan feels the need to keep delaying things to the point where now I really don't care if they ever face off. Tony Khan really has to stop doing that. Strike while the iron's hot and stop trying to long-term book everything. This should feel like a bigger deal, but it just feels like another match that's happening. Ever since the Elite became Trios champions, they haven't really been involved in a feud. They've just been having matches on Dynamite. Matches are good, but that's just about it. And this feels just like that. I want the House of Black to win, but there's no incitement invoked here. I don't even know why this is happening. They teamed up for a while as War Joe. Then they broke up and had a subpar triple threat match at Full Gear where Samoa Joe won both titles. Then they finally had their singles match where Joe won. Pretty definitive. Joe lost the title to Darby Allin, won it back shortly after, only to revisit a feud that's just really cold. This does not have the appeal that it had in the very beginning. I honestly do not care about this match or who wins. I love Hangman Page and Jon Moxley, but this is match number 4. Again, why does Tony Khan feel the need to blow off all these singles matches on Dynamite only to have a match on pay-per-view? When you could have just had their first match meeting on pay-per-view. Or even just a second match. But we done seen most of what they can do already. Now we're just adding weapons. It's gonna be great, but it doesn't feel as hot as it would have been. Again, a situation where somebody got injured, but it feels late to execution. Finally, the main event. I made a video about MJF being a one-dimensional champion. Go watch it. It's on this channel. Bryan Danielson got put through the same hoops and hurdles that MJF has put every single feud he's been in. MJF is trauma dumping. Bryan Danielson wins the gauntlet. Now they're having a match. I'm sorry, but I'm not interested. And that ultimately is why I'm skipping the show tonight. What do you guys think? What can AEW do to go back on track?